Hey there. So you might know that I write a weekly column on communications and life, in addition to hosting this podcast and running Mission Partners. And so this season of the podcast, I'm going to lift up a few of those essays here as short form episodes of the podcast. If you like what you hear, I will hope that you head over to mission.partners and sign up to get these insights delivered to your inbox each and every Wednesday morning. Now, on to this week's column, Set Change. So last year, Brian and I took our girls to see Once Upon a One More Time. It's a cheeky jukebox musical comedy set to the music of Britney Spears. I totally loved it. In which a group of fairy tale princesses make a wish for a new story. Cinderella and her tiara-wearing friends aren't satisfied with this happily ever after thing that requires being rescued or kissed by a prince, and so they set out to chart other roads to their own happy endings. The show, as you might imagine, struck a chord with us, a very Britney-inspired chord, as you might imagine, as Brian and I have wrestled with this notion of princess stories since our daughters were very young. We loved the idea that Sophia and Kate would see those traditional characters take back their stories and write their own happy endings. While the show premiered in DC, I am hoping it finds a much larger audience over time because the premise is one that we can all benefit from. The stories that we pass down need not limit the stories we are capable of writing for our future selves. Now that brings me to another story, maybe with some relevance to your own work. So a few years back, I was working with a college readiness program to produce a video for their annual gala. To help inform the content, I interviewed a dozen or so recent college graduates about their experiences to and through college. I heard so many powerful stories that day, but the passion and the presence of one young woman stood out. She shared how low self-esteem and a lack of consistent support systems had instilled in her a sense of doubt, and it limited her from pursuing her own love of art. And then she shared the moment that everything changed. An art teacher who believed in her talents and supported her dream to pursue a college degree in design. As she sat across from me, she was a newly minted college graduate with a full-time job in a field that she loved. To her, that was the fairy tale ending she could have never dreamed about as a child. And for me, it was by all accounts a success story. She had done everything that this organization aims to support, ensuring that students with limited access to financial resources had pathways to higher education to achieve their higher purpose. She would make for a great start to the gala's activities. I scheduled a call to review my findings and recommendations with our client, though I was not prepared for their reaction. "That will never work," they said. "She's in an arts field. We should really be highlighting young men and women in the STEM fields, as those jobs are much more lucrative and will elicit more donations from our tech sector guests." To this person, there was something lacking, maybe even negative, about pursuing an art job over a tech job. Their preference was to lead with stories that could elicit the most donations, and that got in the way of being able to fully support and celebrate this young woman for all that she had overcome. We did manage to get her story in the show's lineup, but it didn't take the lead spot as I had hoped. Now, I think about that experience often, and I wonder just how often our biases, our own misplaced happy ending stories, get in the way of seeing the full potential of the people around us. As I have learned, there's always more than one happy ending, regardless of what we've been told in any fairy tale. So as you think about the stories you tell, the ones you'll pass down, and the ones you share in your work, ask yourself if you are creating the conditions to tell the whole story, not just the story you think people want to hear. You might just find that a little set change in your storytelling will let the full scene shine through. And that brings us to the end of this short-form episode of Mission Forward. If you heard something that's going to stick with you, drop me a line at carrie@mission.partners and let me know what's got you thinking. And definitely check out some of our longer-form shows on the power of communications. Mission Forward is produced with the support of Sadie Lockhart in association with True Story FM. Engineering by Pete Wright. If your podcast app allows for ratings and reviews, I hope you will consider doing just that for this show. But the best thing you can do to support Mission Forward is simply to share the show with a friend or a colleague. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you next time.